elaborate more on my argument. But we believe that in that process, it's not just about just laying a baby and then giving it up to adoption. It's also about raising that child also. And we believe that when it comes to all those kind of costs, all those kinds of efforts, we believe that it is certain that we can weigh out benefits and therefore go for the opposition. Also, we believe that when it comes to pregnancy, these people aren't able to do alcohol and drugs to have a sound baby. What are you going to do about that? We believe that when it comes to women's rights, we on the opposition have such a more high moral value. Now, so also, we would like to question the government to give up more analysis of why this potentiality has so much benefits that we should therefore go for. Because when they talk about maximizing the numbers and maximizing the mere numbers, we have to first be on the first speaker has pointed out, for example, firefighters. We believe that those people are increasing the exact maximum, the exact mere numbers when it comes to numbers of people of life saving. But also, no thank you. We see many instances where many people are taking surgeries where it might kill them. And in that case, we believe that the mere number is going to go down, but still we allow that in society. So going on to my arguments, I'd like to talk about the many circumstances and the many harmful effects we don't allow abortion. Now, for example, we believe that in Muslim countries, there are a lot of instances where these women may receive death threats and actually die because they aren't supposed to give birth out of wedlock. We believe that in this case, there's immediate death threat if they don't have abortion. If they have abortion, they have a more possibility to live. And we believe that in this case, it's very important that we do allow abortion. So thank you. Also, I like to talk about physical harms because we believe that if we do not allow this kind of abortion, then we believe that, for example, like it happened in the past, these people are going to take illegal means and go to these unverified, unsupervised medical institutions and facilities. And we believe that already in the past, in a moment, many women have been dying because of the infections of these unsupervised medical facilities. What are you going to do about that? Yes.
So are you saying if women have a babies, but if they don't have a fathers, all the women having baby women is not proper in the society?
We believe that, first of all, a lot of women do want to have babies. We believe that a lot of women do want to have babies, and we believe that there is benefits in having babies. But also, when we see that when we're weighing out the harms, we believe that there's just more definite harms if we do not allow it. Now, going back to my argument, I'd like to next talk about the psychological harms, because we believe we believe that in the instances of rape, we believe this is a very serious issue because we believe that the psychological harms that come from rape is very big. We believe that their whole memory, that they've been encountered by force, and that they've been attacked in the most private places that they wanted to secure the most. We believe that this leaves a very bad and very serious emotional harm and psychological harm throughout their lives. But what we're doing is, if we do not allow abortion, we're actually giving them more of a burden. No, thank you. We're giving them more of a burden to keep this baby in the child for the next 11 months, and even to live and see that baby going around and living, and that baby will be reminding of that mother of the instance of the rape and the memories of rape. And we believe that we do not want those women to have such a degrading life just because of this mere possibility that this person may be a human life. Also, I'd like to talk about how it can change individuals' path and change it to the extreme. Because we believe that, for example, there may be cases where the babies, it is sure and scientifically and medically proven that the baby is going to live a very hard and painful life. For example, the baby may have a disease and may have to live on a tube forever. And also, we believe that the baby is going to go through so much physical pain that it's much better off if that baby is going to die. We believe that in those cases, when the individual's life is going to be so much altered, we believe that the abortions are going to be better. Also, when we talk about teenagers and children, my first speaker already told you about this, but to add on, we believe that these teenagers should have a full life ahead and so much time to use it so well and enjoy it so well. But we believe that the time and effort that it takes to raise up a baby is going to be so much of a burden. And we believe that these people have a right to actually live a life fully without any kinds of means and responsibilities attached. Also, we believe that we cannot deny the economic burden of raising these babies, and overall, we just see so many harms when it just comes down to the mere potential that the government is still talking about. So we believe that the government has to talk about more benefits and more reasons why we have to ban abortion. Thank you.
thank the Deputy Leader of the Opposition, now recognize Government Whip.
Madam Speaker, it seems that side opposition in today's debate has completely given up on taking the moral ground in today's debate. They have completely said that they're going to kill people if they're a burden to the mothers. Then it seems to me that side opposition is saying that just because a child is a burden to a mother, we should kill this person. That is the main conception that side opposition is going on, which is something that they should not do. But first of all, before I go into the main points of side opposition, let me identify and go directly into the rebuttals of the Deputy Leader of Opposition. Their only argument and their points were basically saying that raising a child is a burden. We shouldn't allow this, we should allow this to happen because they can't drink alcohol and do drugs. They have psychological harms. First of all, we would like to ask you the question that just because if a person is pregnant, is that person not a productive person? We strongly believe outside government that that person can be a productive person at the end of the day. Something that side opposition is based on an assumption. Second of all, they're alcohol and drug. Just because a person can't drink alcohol and drug doesn't mean that you should kill that baby. This is a conception that side opposition is basically telling to you that we're going to give these burdens and we should allow these, we should prioritize these people's choices over life, which is something that side government is not rooting for. Psychological harms. This is totally ridiculous because just because a person has a psychological harm, that does not lead to the fact that you should kill a person. Just because a psychopath has psychological harm, you shouldn't allow this person to kill everyone and release his own psychological pressure. No, thank you, sir. So go having them really, sorry. So having done the basic rebuttals of their own case, let me directly show to you why all of their cases fall in today's debate. First of all, they're going on a very narrow case in today's debate. We strongly believe that if this motion was only talking about abortion, the CA, the DCA, and everyone who created this motion would use the word abortion. But we are going a step further and telling you that there is a clear environmental factor in the current status quo. We strongly believe that once we allow this to happen, the environment will be changed. But therefore, we believe that there is a distortion of this motion as a whole. But second of all, they're talking about life. When does life start? We've continuously talked to you about the situation of side government and that we are not the people to decide whether a person is living or not. We cannot decide whether a person starts his life. We cannot decide whether a person ends his life. That is something that we cannot decide, and because it is very vague, we want to maximize life. We want everything to be protected at the end of the day. And thank you for the music. Going another step further, because the definition is extremely vague, we want this situation to happen on our side because we are making a better environment for these pregnant women to live in. That is something that side government has continuously talked to you about. But another thing is that you basically on the assumption that because these pregnant women are not capable, we should not allow this to happen. This is the main assumption that side opposition is running on, which is something that we totally oppose. But yes. Ma'am.
Where do you get the assumption that these people are responsible? Having sex does not equal consent to motherhood. These women don't have the responsibility. When they choose to have sex, they do not consent to motherhood. It's simply the act of choosing to have sex.
First of all, we strongly believe that these people have made a first choice in having sex. They will have a baby. We believe that that is the first choice that these individuals have actually made. But second of all, their mischaracterization of our entire case is that they're saying that we're not going to allow situations of rape and these specific situations, but we have clearly told you that we are trying to maximize the life at the end of the day. And because we are trying to maximize life, if we actually see the situation, in some situations, rape, abortion will be allowed. That was a total mischaracterization of our entire case. But going into our own case about our three argumentations, the role of the state, our protection of pregnancy, and the overall development of humanity. Something that side opposition has completely neglected in today's debate is is that the role of the state is to maximize life. They're saying that the maximizing life is not so important for the government because we should allow this first choice to happen. But we clearly tell you that there is no right over life. And we strongly believe that we should allow these people to maximize life at the end of the day. We have clearly shown you that there was a social contract that these individuals have actually made in the first place. And because we should respect that social contract, and because these people have come into this government in the first place, we should protect them. But going on a step further, we have clearly told you that there is a vagueness of definition, and because there is a vagueness of definition, we want to protect everyone.
Sir.
We cannot decide whether a person is living, we cannot decide a person whether that fetus is alive or not, something that side opposition has neglected.
Sir.
And going on to our second argument about the protection of pregnancy, we have clearly told you that in the current status quo, not a lot of people think very highly of pregnant women. They are not that prioritized in the current status quo. Therefore, we are creating an environment and protecting these individual people. We are creating an environment that allows these people to respect pregnant people more. We are taking this definition a step further and allowing more environmental protection for these individual pregnant people, something that side opposition did not want to engage with. But going into our third argumentation about the development for humanity, in the past, in the current status quo, we have continuously seen minorities being abused in the status quo. NC has clearly talked to you about the situation of black people, where at first black people were considered as garbage men and we did not actually respect these individual lives. But once we allow this environment to be changed for the pregnant women, we strongly believe that the environment will be much more better for the pregnant people. And once this prioritization is going up, it is better for the pregnant people, it is better for these individuals to respect their rights, it is better for the fetus at the end of the day. But what side opposition has completely neglected in today's debate was that they're basically saying that the fetus can be aborted and that we should prioritize these people's choices over the life of individuals. We do not believe that that is the choice and the role of the government that these individuals should say. Their burden of proof in today's debate was to actually show to us why it should not be the government and it should be the individuals. But we have clearly shown to you in our rebuttals and our argumentations about why the individual is not the adequate person, because they cannot create the overall environment of the entire society. That is something that side government has continuously rooted on in today's debate. How women can abort. Their third argumentation was basically a repetition of their entire stance in saying that we don't want abortion. We don't want whatever the stance was. At the end of the day, so what we're trying to say is that we're taking a step further for this definition. We are creating this environment. They seem to not want this environment at the end of the day. We strongly believe that these choices should not be respected over the right to life, and that is something that side proposition is rooting for. We propose.
We thank the government whip. We now recognize the opposition whip.
Essentially here, ladies and gentlemen, we're not killing anyone or we're not saving anyone's life. Because the thing is that we never know, to the moral debate, there's never an ending, there's never an answer. The whole case of the government was based on the assumption that someday we will find an answer. However, in the status quo, in the society we are living right now, the fact is that we will never reach a consensus, that we will never find an answer. Therefore, when we see a problem which we will never find an ending to, essentially we're not killing anyone or saving anyone. See, the whole case of the government was based on this uncertainty. However, you have to realize that this problem is never going to be solved anytime in our society. Then what do we have to do? Then we have to realize, actually weigh out the positives and the benefit sides of it, and we have to realize that the first and primary goal, or first and primary responsibility is not in the government, because we say that it's actually up to the individuals, because we say actually the women who own these babies, they have the primary right when we are actually faced with this with the never-ending dilemma or never-ending dispute. Now we see a very big contradiction on the government's case. They actually said in the PM speech that in exceptional cases, we have to weigh out the positives and the benefits. We don't know if it's, first of all, a value clash on the government side, or second of all, if they're actually conceding to the opposition's case, that sometimes in exceptional cases, that it's okay. No, thank you. Now, third, I want to touch upon the responsibility. They have said that it's actually in the responsibility of the woman, but as we repeatedly told you, having sex and getting raped, that is not consenting to motherhood, and that's a very value that we want to promote here today. Now let me move on to addressing the three clashes of today's debate. First of all, is this a baby or not? Second of all, will this policy create another moral debate? Third of all, what is the status quo? Who has a better understanding of the status quo? The government is actually basing their case on uncertainty, and the government is actually taking the most extreme form of religious stance and applying it to the general public. And we say that that is a very mistake of the government's case today. Now we see no link in how the government can base their policy on an uncertainty and how government can exercise so much government power over the whole individual. Now, we say that, first of all, the government cannot base their policy on uncertainty, especially if they're taking the most extreme of religious stance here. Second, we want to value individuals' right to bodily autonomy, that before all, that the baby actually belongs to the mother, and whatever decision that the mother makes should be most respected when it comes to a never-ending debate that we have on the podium today. No, thank you. The government also tackled us in saying, what gives you the right to decide when life starts? Let me rebut to that on this. First of all, what gave you the right to assume that fetus is actually life? What gave you the right to that assumption? And second of all, what gave you the right to justify the ruining of someone's life based on uncertainty and based on taking the most extreme measures of religious stance? No, thank you. And what gave you the right to actually excuse and just ignore the further moral dilemmas that are actually created under their policy? As we have clearly explained to you, there are further moral disputes that root out of their policy. No, thank you. Now, so what is this another moral debate that they're talking about? The role of the government is not to hold onto a never-ending debate. The role of the government, when we realize that this debate is never-ending, we have to find certain measures that can benefit the society, that can be most practical and efficient, that can lessen harm, and that doesn't create another moral debate. No, thank you. The more compelling issue is this, the creation of another moral debate. First of all, they're actually making women as a tool to actually give birth against their will. And that's the most important thing that we have today. And also, we have proven to you that 9-month pregnancy is not just nothing, but it actually involves love, care, and when we say you have to give birth to someone that you've been raped by, we say that's a moral punishment that the government is creating, and the government gave no justification how the government is actually justified to that moral punishment, nor did we see any engagement on the issue of the creation of another moral punishment. No, thank you. We see that the government, in this case, is actually immoral, they're irresponsible, and we saw no justification whatsoever to actually claim this moral side of the debate. So let me ask you this on the government side. What gives you the right to morally torture? No, thank you. Let me explain to you the status quo. The status quo is that, sadly, regardless of their policy or not, there are going to be people who are getting abortions. It's because of this itself, people who are getting raped, is a severe problem. It's not a simple matter. And if they see that this is a critical problem, they are going to find illegal means, and they're going to find more dangerous methods to actually seek abortion, regardless of their policy or not. So we say, I'll take you in a moment, their policy is not actually effective, and when we see that there is no change in the status quo, with this policy or without this policy, when we see that there is no actual tangible effect in this policy driven out of uncertainty, there is simply no need for this policy at all. when having this policy itself creates so many other moral dilemmas. And that's why we're very proud to oppose.
We thank the opposition whip. We now recognize the opposition reply speaker.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a government side who essentially concedes that there is a component of uncertainty. They say that we're not certain, but what is their response to this? They simply say that, therefore, because we are unsure, we should never leave the individuals the choice, and it should always be the government who unilaterally imposes their will on them. And we think that's a very dangerous and unhealthy stance that we want to see in this debate. So, in terms of the overall how the debate boils down to, I want to ask 4 questions. Firstly, is this life or not? Secondly, do these women have the responsibility? Thirdly, should the state be able to impose this policy? And fourthly, regarding the effects. First of all, regarding the life, because we told you all of our analysis in regards to how these babies lack viability and that they lack agency, fundamentally distinguishing them from any other forms of life, and that they are completely dependent on them, which means that without the mother's actual existence, that these babies cannot actually survive. They never actually rebutted to this. It was completely ignored in this debate, and we think that was a very important thing for them to consider. Secondly, in regards to whether these women do have the responsibility. Basically, their entire case was this. Women consented to have sex, and so they are responsible for having babies for the rest of their lives. We don't think that that analysis is enough. What exactly is the kind of contract that they're talking about? And secondly, moreover, which is far more important, when these women choose to have sex, they do not consent to motherhood. We say, in fact, we've already told you that sex is a very large part of any adult person's independent, normal life, a successful life, and for them to simply say that these people cannot actually do this because of the potentiality that a baby may be created is completely ridiculous. And then they also talk to you about this example of vegetables and how whether or not they are actually allowed to be killed. And in fact, yes, that's actually a factual correction that I must give to the government, because when a vegetable has no actual potential of coming back to life without life support, then that decision is actually given to the family to actually choose. Thirdly, in terms of should the state be able to should they be able to impose this? Because we told you, ladies and gentlemen, as of yet, there are no artificial wombs that can actually support or create a life. And women are the only legitimate and viable ways of creating a life. And then they go on to say that because of this maximizing life principle, which we already told you is a very arbitrary rule that does not get enforced in all situations, as we've given you with the example of firefighters, they say that ultimately, because of their principle, that they should be unilaterally imposed. But we think that the state should not be treating women as baby-making machines for their own aims of actually maximizing life, and we've already told you that's not acceptable. In terms of the cost of the policy, we think that it's the individuals who bear the brunt of this, because it is the greatest harms of actually having to take care of the child. It actually ultimately falls in their hands, and because of this, and also additionally because it's an uncertain moral dilemma, we therefore think that it should be up to the individual's moral autonomy to make the decision. Finally, in regards to the effects, because we told you, and they simply laughed through this, but this is very important, ladies and gentlemen, that when unwanted babies actually come into this earth, they eventually end up having to live a very difficult existence, almost sometimes even at the threat of actually taking away the mother's life. Because we told you about the examples of how women in Muslim communities, when they actually give birth to birth to a child out of wedlock, then they are even threatened to be stoned to death. And we told you how that's a very dangerous thing, ultimately, for these women to preserve their own life, if that's the maximizing principle that they want to go on, and we think that that's something that the state should allow. And therefore, because we also told you how
This entire policy is condemning thousands of women to death, and there is no way, surely way of knowing whether these are life or not. We are very proud to oppose.
We thank the opposition reply speaker to close this debate. Let's recognize the government reply speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I think Alice is nice and kind to people, but it turns out they just murder, right? They just said, if there is potential, I just kill the babies. Basically, this is the stance these guys bring into this debate without any moral high ground. Plus that, I think this is really shame, because in the finals, Alice did what the debaters can't do win the debate. First, misrepresentation. We're clearly giving this as liberal democratic society. If Muslims kill their daughters just because they have babies, you can't have that in the liberal democratic society, which is clearly misrepresentation, right? Secondly, they shift the case. First speaker never talked about, this is the debate about rape to people who have a pregnancy. But all their cases, from second and third speaker, is just about raping and that thing. I think this is their shame. Third, they never have any rebuttals about second and third argument, which is really important. Because this is not just debate about abortions, right? This is debate about people who have babies. We must protect their babies in their homes. Lastly, they just lie, right? They said, I don't kill any peoples, right? But we clearly ask you the questions about vegetarian peoples. I think they are pretty much peoples. You kill that people. And moving on to my classes. First, vagueness and role of the state. I clearly told you this idea, right? You can't just decide when the life starts. Then if your role of the state is maximize a life, you must assume all the things is a life, because at the end of the day, you probably make a mistake. I think that is clear. And these guys said, okay, because there is a lot of scientific proven things, or which is not proven, but science assumes that assuming should be a clear standard. What a shame standard, right? Because you can't say that is absolute. Because you can't say that is perfect. That is why we want to maximize this life, because this is the role of the state. And these guys talk about, oh, if I sex with others, that doesn't mean I want to be a woman. But the problem is, you guys know there is a possibility. If you do some actions, you must bear that consequence. Then they talked about you can kill the babies if there is inconvenience, because this is the problem. Then we give you the answers, right? You guys making society worse, because what you're telling to the society is, if you have babies, you can be proper life. And if there is the problem, make the society better. That should be a case, right? Because in our models, real world models is, we can protect the people killing the life, and then we can say to the people, we humanize the fetus in the homes, because we think that is really important, which is clearly ignored by these people, because I think their potential is too much important in their life. But the problem is, your potential cannot kill the people, because Junon clearly blocked my potential, but I can't. And thirdly, development of a human being, which is completely dropped, right? Because if there is no development of human being, you guys can vote at it, because that is the beauty of development of human being. If there is no development, you guys can't be here. You can't debate. That is why you must pursue more human development of the human being. That is why we want to recognize fetus as a real human being. We want to give them fundamental human rights. Lastly, society is that bad. We give you the ideas, right? Just because you have a baby and you don't have a father, that doesn't mean you can't be proper in the society, right? Even if you have a babies, you can be proper life. You can get a job. Maybe 1 or 2 years will be delayed. But at the end of the day, I believe girls like Alice, because even if you have a baby, you can be better. You can be some of the people, right? But in your ideas, if I have a baby, I can do anything about this. Then these guys say children is going to be bad. But the problem is, that is not the case. If you want to say, I must kill these people, you must bring us the direct harms of these actions. But probably cannot be a reason to kill the people, because there is a vagueness. Mr. Speaker, we want to maximize life, because there is vagueness. Scientific things cannot be a standard, and nobody gave you the right to decide life. For the reasons, motion stands.
We invite all the debaters to please cross paths. You guys can line.